In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today with Hannah Swinkin. And she's hailing over as the head of marketing at BoxHub. And at BoxHub, they're doing something very interesting. They're basically bringing new and used shipping containers back to the market. So we want to really figure out how they're being used, what BoxHub is actually all about, what happens with those shipping containers, and then also how Hannah's thinking about growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Lucas. Appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. So maybe give people sort of an insight, like what is BoxHub all about? What happens with those containers? So you guys build houses, what happens with them?
Sure, great question. So BoxHub is, in a nutshell, an e-commerce and logistics platform dedicated to the purchase and sale of shipping containers, which typically when I introduce my role to new people can get a few raised eyebrows. Marketing, shipping containers seems like quite a niche. It's actually a fascinating and rapidly diversifying market to be a part of. Whether we know it or not, shipping containers do play a huge role in our day-to-day lives. For example, I've seen statistics vary on this, but anywhere between 80 to 95% of the world's consumer goods are transported by sea and therefore transported by shipping container. So even though we don't see them on the daily, they are a huge part of our daily lives. However, our role, BoxHub's role, comes in after the shipping process. So after these shipping containers have been retired, after, say, 10 to 15 years at sea, what happens next to them? You may be interested and surprised to learn that there is a rapidly growing secondary market for retired shipping containers for a whole array ecosystem of alternative use cases. They can range from the relatively simple, so for example, storage units, the same qualities that make a shipping container great for shipping also makes it great for self-storage or additional storage for small businesses. But they can also include the development of shipping container homes, both for full-term use, but also as accessory dwelling units, so an additional source of income for landowners. And then we've seen more recently shipping containers being transformed into ghost kitchens, vertical farms. One of our clients has even transformed shipping containers into a monkey sanctuary, and another one has created a full kind of emergency ICU down in Mexico, fully from shipping containers. So there really is an incredible world beyond the world of shipping that shipping containers can be used for.
Very interesting. So now you were bringing up a couple of examples there. So what would be sort of a typical use case? I wanted to ask a typical use case, but it seems it really ranges. And is it typically businesses that reach out to you? Is it private people? Who's a good fitting client for BoxHub?
Yeah. I would say it's a really healthy mix right now of people who want to use shipping containers for both their personal use and business uses as well. Primarily, I would say the use case right now is for that extra storage. So either people who, for example, don't have a garage at home, but needs additional space in order to store their car or other kind of seasonal vehicles. They can purchase a shipping container and use it for that purpose. Alternatively, if they're moving house and they don't want the stress of moving straight from one space to another and moving all of their stuff in between, they can purchase a shipping container so that they can place their items on their new property and kind of arrange their space at their leisure. But as I mentioned, there is a huge surge in different cases that shipping containers can be used for. Modular homes is one that really seems to be surging in demand right now. The idea is that with the shipping container, because it is a structurally sound kind of unit, prefabricated unit, it can create a very compact home in a much quicker time frame than a traditional construction would take, and also at a much more affordable cost.
Now, how do people learn about BoxHub? Like, what's sort of the journey that they go through? Or in other words, what are the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage to, like, let them know about you and getting started with you guys?
Yeah, I would say our primary channels right now are definitely Google, people searching for shipping containers. We see a lot of transactional searches, for example, shipping containers for sale, from people who do already know about the benefits of purchasing shipping containers and what they can be used for, but all of those alternative use cases that I mentioned. We do also have a very strong word of mouth and referral network, because we have really prided ourselves on our social proof. For example, we have well over 100 reviews on Trustpilot right now from customers who have been happy with our service. So our customers speak to other potential container purchases, and it kind of has been an effect from there.
Okay, very cool. So that gives a very good insight. So you mentioned actually the website plays a key role. How do you think about the website, right? As a marketer, it's always an ever evolving piece of work. What do you feel is a strength of the website versus where do you see even, further room for improvement?
It's a great question. I would say our website is very much in its infancy right now. Opportunity. Flow is definitely something that we're proud of. It's very straightforward to use and to the point. The area in which we are dedicating and my focus is right now is the development of more value-driven content for customers. So making sure that throughout their purchasing decision and beyond, they have all of the facts and information that's needed in order for them to make a well-informed purchase. So that's our biggest opportunity right now is the development of that content.
Very cool. I mean, it seems even YouTube is, I mean, I'm not sure, guys, if you're on that, but, YouTube seems to be geared for people who want to build tiny houses out of shipping containers. There seems millions and millions of views on those videos. So that seems interesting. Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. Sorry, didn't want to interrupt.
No, not at all. I was going to say YouTube is definitely a thriving channel for, as you said, any kind of repurposement projects for shipping containers. There are a huge number of both micro and macro influencers right now in the space. So it's definitely something that we are going to be developing our presence on.
Very cool. Now, you as a marketer, just in general, what have you learned over the years, right? I mean, can be even prior to BoxHub when it comes to actually driving, those signups and conversions on the website, because it's one thing to get them on the page, but a whole different thing to actually, for example, let them request a quote or getting started or whatever. What have you learned? Any tools, methods, approaches that you've picked up over the years?
That's a great question. I would say my biggest learning is to never make assumptions. Every business is different. Every industry is different. What has worked in terms of, refinements and the user journey on one website may not necessarily translate into another. So my perspective is to take a grassroots approach each time. Obviously, there are best practices that you can have in your back pocket, but to not take for granted the fact that audiences are different. One call to action on a website may not work as intended on another. So just a consistent kind of, not making any assumptions, but then also testing, letting the data guide you and going from there.
Very cool. Now, I would like to switch gears a little bit and learn a little bit more about yourself, since we've been speaking about BoxHub and the journey and that people go through and the website quite a bit, but I would love to, understand a little bit more about your role as a marketer. So maybe give us a glimpse into sort of the world of marketing at BoxHub. So what are sort of like key projects, things that you would work with on a daily basis?
Great question. I am currently a department of one. I'm very I'm doubling in a couple of weeks, which I'm very excited about. As a result of that, the day-to-day for the marketing team at BoxHub is quite varied. It can pivot from more SEO focused long form content, getting that updated, placed on the website, all the way to our performance marketing initiatives, establishing our campaigns and continual optimizations on that front. We do also, I am responsible for PR as well. So we are very much looking to get established across our various different local markets, taking a very hyper-local approach there. So it really does vary. Also, CRM management is also a very important part of the day-to-day as well, making sure that all of our data is clean, is crisp, is working effectively for us.
Very cool. Okay, I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today. Are you ready for those?
I think so.
Very good. What is the last book that you read?
Oh, that's a good question. It's either called Animal Person or Animal People by Alistair MacLeod.
You will definitely check that out and put it into the show notes. What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Great question. I would say in terms of more tactical, it's sustainable growth. So making sure that we are expanding to new markets in a thoughtful, mindful way. But also long term, it would be our vision, which is to build a more sustainable world, one container at a time.
And I think if we're going back for the book for 1 second, it's Animal Person on the book, Animal People is a movie. So we got
there we go. Thank you.
No worries. Very good. Cool. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would fix for your role as a marketer with BoxHub today?
Ooh, good question. I think it's less associated with my role as a marketer and more the industry in general. We're operating in a space which is very much built on pen and paper processes. So getting the shipping containers from depot to new end customer can be quite a challenge. I think developing the technology that connects all of the stakeholders within the process, which we are actively working on, would definitely be up there in my wish list.
Very cool. And for the very last question, I'd like to ask you, basically, if we do a little bit of time travel, we go back to the days of the University of Toronto, right? So you're heading out of formal education into the world of, actually, you were in many different, content-related types of roles prior, a copywriter even, and then, into marketing. What would be the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Good question. I would say to try and immerse yourself in as many projects that involve communicating up to senior leadership as possible. I found that once I was able to do that, my career trajectory changed for the better, because I understood what was going on at a more macro level in the businesses that I was operating in. But I also understood the priorities of the company and the leadership teams much better. So what I thought was really important on the day-to-day, it kind of put it into perspective what was actually important on the day-to-day. So I'd give myself that piece of advice.
That makes sense. Very, very good. I really appreciate you took the time with us, Hannah, today to be a guest on Pathfang Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about BoxHub, what's the one thing that people should remember?
I would say that shipping containers are very much like Lego blocks for adults. You can build whatever you want with them. And when you are ready to build them, you should come to BoxHub.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathfang Presents.
Thanks for having me.